and everything, sterilising
the
whole system. Oh, beautiful.
Yeah,
and you would sell that for raffles?
Yep.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Good system.
And it's always been green? Like you've raffled for green?
There was a time, like when... you're probably too young to know. I didn't realise how young you all are.
It is likely. We're pretty young here.
Great.
Yeah.
Stick-on beards.
Sorry.
Fantastic.
I don't know how well this is going.
It's going great. This is fun.
You see, I targeted the jam. I think it's my fault we went down this rabbit hole.
Well, it's real local good thing to do. Like, I just tear my hair out when I see people who have fruit and it's not being redistributed. Do you know there was a time when Road Services, which was a government bus service, used to take fruit from the country for it wouldn't have been $1, it would have been, a shilling, I think, or something, a box to the city, so food wouldn't be wasted and it would be brought to the cities. Now it doesn't happen because we've got a market economy. I'll get on to neoliberalism later if you let me.
Yes, please. Well, maybe like 3 or 4 shows ago, I brought a gold kiwi fruit here, and I started the show talking about that because a friend gave it to me, and he said that it was going on waste. They were actually feeding cows first with that gold fruit. It was the most beautiful, perfect gold kiwi fruit that I've ever seen, and he said they were just not on the standards of whoever was selling that, and then there was a truck full of them that was going on waste, and then obviously he didn't say names or anything. I wouldn't do that to expose him or anything, but it just showed how silly it is, right? Because first of all, if you're gonna feed the cattle, why there's not a program to send that to people who are actually in need, but then there's a fear of not being good enough and people getting sick, which is ridiculous, which we know that it doesn't work like that. It doesn't
happen. I think we've all been receiving little buckets and bags of kiwi fruit lately.
And then so that's one of the things that really upsets me. And the other one that you said is it's how we don't do something about the batches who are sitting there in the dark throughout the year with fruit rotting. And I'm not saying that it's okay for people to break into houses to get some fruits, but maybe all of us as a community, we could think a bit smarter about that system.
Absolutely. I mean, the simplest thing is just to put it out the front of your house and say free or help yourself. And there are people who will take it and be very appreciative. I know if you've been fishing and you've got a surplus of fish frames from my cousin, it'll be 10 minutes on Whiri Chit Chat and those fish frames are picked up and gone. There are people, it's one of my kind of drumbeats really, is that our area in Whitianga and our wider Mercury Bay is a game of two halves. We have those who have more than enough, and we have 50% of people who actually are struggling. Yep. But that's not recognised enough. So it's an issue. But this is the market economy. This is how it works. We've had more food parcels being handed out in New Zealand than ever before. And yet we have our Prime Minister saying, New Zealand feeds the world. We've got Fonterra saying, our job is to feed the world. Well, excuse me, how about having accessible milk, apples, and so forth in New Zealand and feed our nation first? We're actually having to wear the degradation of the environment, the degradation of our society, the alienation of rich and poor, and it doesn't make sense to me. But that is what we've been dragged into. It started happening after, again, you'll be too young to know about, and you weren't born here, about this thing called region.
That's coming onto ALTBAYS. This ageist comments we're getting. You know, these old people who come in here and tell us how young we are.
Doesn't bother me. But
I love young men.
For those listening, the temperature in the room just got a lot hotter.
Oh yeah, all the red lights are pumping.
Anyway, I'd like to reassure you that I see my role merely as if you ever want to draw on me to discuss things.
Mm-hmm.
I want to move away from activism. I've been involved unwittingly for 50 years plus. I kind of would like to chill out a bit more, but I don't want to waste what I'm starting to realise, and I mean that genuinely. I'm only starting to realise that I've acquired a certain knowledge and perspective, and I'd love to see people use me as a resource and a mentor.
Mentor. You know. I was thinking about a mentor.
Yeah.
Anna Horne, the inactivist.
The inactivist.
Yeah,
Perfect.
perfect.
Anna, but like what you were saying just before about this being the market and how things are. I see the example in Brazil now that we have a murderer in power and you know, all these lunatics that are all like neo liberals and like
it must grieve you so much.
It's sad, yeah.
It really grieves you.
It's an everyday exercise.
Because you didn't used to. You had this amazing guy.
We were okay. We were doing pretty good with the guy before who made his mistakes, I must say. But
we're all human.
For a perspective of raising people out of poverty, he was fantastic.
What was his name again?
Lula.
Lula, that's right.
Lula, yeah.
That's right.
Lula.
Yeah, I remember talking with people about Lula.
Yeah. No, pretty spot on. But like where I was going with that is every time that you try to bring this idea of being a bit more like people's focused, you know, like people start to accuse you as socialist, communist, like there's not even an understanding of this political systems. But like, why do we fear so much this collapse of capitalism that, in my view, I told Sandra Gowdy here, I said, for me, it's doomed. It's just a matter of time that it's going to doom. But for the people who are in power right now, it's very comfortable to defend because they know that they can keep their generation, their children in a comfortable position. But like, it's going to start to affect the air, the water, and all these things. Like, so why do we fear so much? Is it propaganda? What is it? In your perspective, obviously.
Well, that's the big question. You know, when I was, I guess, beginning high school, we read Animal Farm by George Orwell.
Taylor loves it.
It's a fun read.
Yeah, power corrupts. Power corrupts absolutely. And now we have people who have increasing wealth because we have very unfair tax systems and a commitment to international capitalism. I mean, even China basically has a form of capitalism. And so the haves are addicted. They're addicted to having more. Like if you speak or research people who have plenty,
they want more.
They want more. I mean, you can see it. It's well documented. Those of us who don't have much, it's not an issue. So we commit to our community's needs and well-being because we love our communities and we understand those real values. But other people are taken away from those basic values.
I recently was reminded, I'm probably going to get the number wrong, but it was something that if you earn 35,000 American dollars a year, so 70,000 a year, sorry, less than that, isn't it? Like 50-something thousand New Zealand. You're already in the top 1% of wealth in the world.
That's right.
You're already so 99%, so billions of people have less than you.
Well, that's absolutely true.
Plus, which is a fascinating number. Like you think that we are, most of us in Whitianga are already, and even the poorest in Whitianga, globally speaking, are pretty much in the top 1-2% of the world's positions of financial wealth.
It's sobering, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we are using the resources at a totally disproportionate rate. And we say we're entitled to it.
Well, we are a minority, so minorities like to kick up a stink. So, you know, As a minority,
But
we want to have our share.
It brings us back a bit to what you were saying earlier about, well, what the hell does it matter if New Zealand sends a lot of carbon or methane into the atmosphere? You know, and the argument which you'll hear again and again, which is, oh, well, it doesn't matter, we're only a little bit. But actually, all those little bits add up.
Counts for sure.
And New Zealand has, by being courageous over the years and in our policies, we've forged an independent, relatively independent path, and we have attained a certain credence for our opinions on things, and a lot of that those cinch back to ethical and moral standards, and so we can have a leadership role. We just have to, step up and continue that. And I'm really delighted that Jacinda, for example, has been doing that in America. You know, I mean, we're a bit player, but we've often been able to, be influential, and it seems to count.
Well, so you mentioned you were fifth generation Kiwi. So your grandmother's generation would have got the vote?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so was that a big... Have you ever talked to your grandmother about that sort of thing?
It would have been before her.
So before your grandma, was it the late 18th century?
Yeah.
1800s?
18 something. I'm not very good on figures. 18 something. Late 1880s.
If you're watching, can you type that number in for us and we'll try and trace back the genealogy? Yeah? How old was grandma?
Women getting the vote here was a major thing, and Florence Harsand, who was one of the pioneering women who lived at Hahei, used to travel around New Zealand, working for the suffrage movement. There were a lot of people. It was tied up with the temperance movement.
I don't know the temperance. What was that?
Temperance is about non-drinking, because alcohol was just a huge problem for... Well, of course it would be if you're in a gold mine down in the back of the Kauringa Valley, or down in Gumtown at Corra Glen, and you're sloshing around in the mud and the cold and so forth. Of course you'd like your moonshine. But of course this meant women were abused, they were always having babies, they were living in shit.
Now I feel rude having taken that sip during it, so I'm a horrible person. I take back the sip.
It's all right, moderation.
But then in what you said, New Zealand, with all that change that's happened over so many lifetimes, that's sort of being world leading.
Yeah, it has. I recall talking with a doctor friend of mine, I used to work with in Auckland, and when I said when I came here when I was pregnant and we just first moved down here, I mean I was living in a caravan. We used to swim in the Mahakaro. That was our bath. We had the odd long drop and all that stuff.
The odd long drop, why is it odd?
The old.
Oh, the old, I was going to say, what's the shape of it?
It was probably pretty odd anyway.
That's long enough.
When there were big gusts of wind, occasionally the sort of infrastructure would end up down in the bush, But, and I did end up undiagnosed at the time with postnatal depression, and I must have been talking to Di one time, and she said, this is why women really had it hard. They used to get so lonely in pioneer days. They would climb up hills, and walk for hours just to see the smoke of another place. It's pretty tough for women in New Zealand in those early days. But don't forget, we are only talking about the Pākehā version of things. And this is being totally ignoring of what happened in terms of our First Peoples of New Zealand, which was that's another whole story, and I'm only talking about this from a perspective. I'd just like to make that clear, because I totally tautoko the the experience of tangata whenua.
Well, that's a beautiful segue. It's beautiful to bring that up.
One of the techniques that we know very well, it's when you still have resistance of indigenous people, you trap them in different ways with easy access to alcohol. The poor areas of the country has more dairies and shops that will sell unhealthy foods than actually healthy foods. So like it's still a kind of like colonization that strikes pretty strong. And then there's this culture of like, I'm strong and I drink a lot and I'm a big macho because. So we know that all these issues are still alive. It's just how much makeup we put on top of it, right? So it's beautiful when we see something like the opening of the Friday, putting people together, or Tiffany's show on Saturday, like celebrating Maori culture, and you have a chat with all those people who were there, who know so much about what you're saying about the culture and how important it is. And would you like to talk a little bit about Thursday, what happens? Because some people listen to our show. Just a reminder that we're not only a YouTube platform, we're also on all the audio platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. So a lot of people listen to our show. So if you don't mind just giving us a little bit of context on what happened last Thursday.
Sure. Well, as a result of a huge, really shift in attitude in Te Whanganui in our area, which I think was really helped along by Tuia 250 when we were all looking at this whole issue of colonisation and setting history to rights. At long last, Ngāti Hei and other hapu began to be recognised in Mercury Bay. A lot of resistance, I'll have to say, by certain sectors here, but there was a definite shift in recognition starting to be attributed as it rightfully should be.
What types of resistance are you meaning? So resistance local or other people?
Well, there were a lot of people who all they wanted to talk about was Captain Cook. They didn't want to talk about Kupe or the original voyages. I mean, this is a really significant area.
It's so sad, isn't it, that someone would have that perspective or be upset by the opposite or just another story, another perspective. It's so sad.
And stupid, because this is racist. A chance to enrich yourself, and when people go on, bloody Maoris or whatever, I just think, you're so narrow, you're denying yourself richness.
I think I try and feel pity. I feel sad. Something didn't happen. They didn't get the right experience. They didn't have the right people talking. They didn't have the parents. They didn't have the local connections or bonding. I think it's sad.
It is sad.
Because we're very young. Very young. You've mentioned it a few times.
Sorry about that.
And so we've heard. I grew up hearing all these stories of people's perspectives and grandparents' generation and whatnot, and it's always been so baffling. How anyone even bothered thinking like that for so long. But I guess I'm fortunate and lucky and naive in that sense.
I think I do agree. I think there is a huge shift, which is wonderful. That people of your generation more, it's not an issue, but it is kind of an older person's issue, I think, for the most part. And yet,
of course, that generation is still present. There's still a percentage of the population, still a percentage of the community.
And guess who's in the power seats?
And they'll have grandkids, and they'll have nephews and nieces, and they'll have influence.
Yeah.
But it's sad.
It is sad. However, I'm really delighted at what happened down at Mercury Bay Area School on Thursday morning, I think it was.
Yeah.
And I know we were all there at dawn. I had the privilege of accompanying some friends of mine there too, and we were part of a beautiful ceremony at dawn with the last of the moon and Venus and Jupiter in the sky.
That's interesting. I didn't even think about. I was all in the event at the time. I didn't even look up.
Yeah. Oh, well.
So narrow-minded me.
No, not at all. There was a lot to take in. There was a beautiful gathering. I was so delighted to see the whole event being so honoured by so many people in the community.
So for those listening, at Mercury Bay Area School here in Whitianga, our whare, our Māori student classroom, our place of learning has had a huge rebuild, a huge update where finally there was funding and the skills and the connection and the support to Master Carver James Webster has carved thousands of years of stories and tradition and culture and values and integration with nature. He tried speaking through it over an hour, and again, he could only glance over the most smallest details, but it is absolutely stunning. It's beautiful, it's powerful, and it was very moving being there at dawn. And do you remember the moment when it was pitch black and Mātua Joe Davis, Ngāti Hei, was speaking about the protocols, putting away the phones, let's get in the moment, be real. And then the team was slowly taking away the screens.
Yes.
And then just as he was speaking, the fires turned on.
Yes.
And the whole event, it just sharpened. The whole event was, because we couldn't see anything. There was no colours that we could see. We couldn't see any of the designs. And then all of a sudden, let there be light. Boom! And the whole room was hundreds of people watching, kids singing, beautiful presentation speeches. But it was a real experience, very moving. It was very hard to sit there filming after the ceremonies. We were to film the presentation. It was hard to film because you just wanted to listen. I am guilty, and I apologise to Judy Evans, who asked me to film in her camera. I ended up filming the floor for about 20 minutes. And as she flicks through, she'll realise that you're looking at some feet and some lower backs.
Yeah, and you're right. For all of us, it's about slowly, for some of us, more slowly than others. I mean, we have to absolutely recognise that for a big portion of our communities, this is their way. Te ao Māori is their way, and we are learners about it. I'm amongst the learners. And as was explained by some of my friends, what James presented isn't purely a work of art, which Western eyes will say, oh my God, isn't it beautiful? This is actually a statement of te ao Māori. This is who they are. This is their belief structure, and it's not just a pretty thing. And that's the challenge for all of us: is how to respond to that and embrace it and be delighted and enriched by having two cultures merging or appreciating each other and at least able to coexist. Nothing to be afraid of, something to be celebrated. And that's why when we've got all this other bullshit going on about, co-governance, they're taking away their power and stuff, that's just a whole lot of nonsense as far as I'm concerned. But it was really real. I was privy a little bit to some of the background preparations, and there was huge discussion about the protocols, the karakia, how it would all happen, how the karakia have to be done before the first birds sing, all these different things, the touching of the whare and the walls, all extremely important and not play acted. This is real.
It was beautiful talking to Mātua Brandon at a point where I got to have a few words with him, because he's a man of infinite stories. He's a man, you give him a mic and you'll run out of tape.
Yeah.
But he talked about how you just look at one single facet of the whare and its design, and there's hundreds of kōrero. Each of them has a meaning, a story, and relevance. And when Mātua James spoke about different parts of the art and went into the meaning of it, you said the merging of cultures, so much of it applied to just being human and being alive and being in the real world. So that was quite nice to hear narratives that, from a different perspective, telling me things that I can relate to.
Yes.
So it was really nice to have that sort of the convergence of ideas shown in a different light and explained in a different way. And again, it's artistic, but it's beautiful, but it's informative. But I want to know more.
Yes. Well, I think that's the whole idea of the whare whananga, is that it invites you. Like, I'm looking forward to just stopping on when I go on a morning walk and just sitting there and just looking and thinking, and maybe someone will stop and sit down beside. I love that welcoming thing, and I think this is the generosity of tangata whenua to us as colonisers, and we have to really pull our socks up on this one.
Yeah, because we cannot fix what was done, but we can definitely change what's happening now for the future, right?
Absolutely.
I want to link two subjects here. We were talking about the importance of having such a influencers explaining to us what was happening there at the whare, and like the kids were listening, and all of us, we were all listening and learning. So you can tell that we cared about that, we were like in that position of a student, of appreciating that. And then and then going back to a little bit of politics, it's very common to listen to people saying that they don't care. And not caring seems very dangerous when it comes to something that it defines our lives in a way, right? Because the people who are in power, they move the pieces for us. So how do we get the young people to become more interested in politics, or even not the young? Because before the show we were talking about how now that Fabian has more responsibilities with a family, now he's kind of being forced to understand a bit more, right? So like how do we change this thing of because George Carlin said it's for the people who have the power, it's great that we don't give a fuck.
Oh, absolutely.
It's fantastic because they stay there, So what would you say? What are the good tools or techniques that we can try to start to make a change?
Well, first off, kia kaha to ALTBAYS. This is how.
Thank you.
How we try and break through. I mean, it's through discussion and being prepared to step outside our comfort zones, I guess. I mean, you're already doing it. You're crossing several cultures. Fabian and I are learning within our own situation, but I think one of the things I would say, and I'm advised to say this by a pretty smart young woman friend of mine, is just point out that all these people who are controlling our lives, well, not all, but many of them, actually started off when they were your ages. Like, you don't wait. Do you want to give up your power? Do you want to give up your future and your children's future to people who you think, what? You're from the fucking dark ages. Like, it's about saying, okay, we want to take back the responsibility. And to my mind, it's about taking responsibility. And it surprises me how through the years I've realised people don't want to take responsibility. They're really happy to sit and grumble and they and them and so forth. But they and them actually are us. And I really like this attitude about, for example, the climate change thing. It's not about they and them and Fonterra and everyone. It's actually the team of 5 million. It's of how many people on the planet? The team of everyone. And it's all of our responsibilities. Like, it's my job, your job. It's all of our jobs. And similarly with our governing, they say you get what you deserve. I don't actually believe that. I think that's a stupid thing to say. We don't deserve a lot of bullshit. Like, for me, quite frankly, I think our district has been dominated too long by self-interest. For example, I now am on a community trust which administers some pensioner flats. There are 9. We have a waiting list of over 50. And yet the council, which is in charge of, the rules and regs and who develops and how they develop, have done nothing to ensure that there's a place where more facilities can be provided for our older people, who've lived here all their lives.
Well, that's a great point that we need to raise. We need to raise when council people come onto the show. That's a great point to raise with them. What about this part of the community?
Yeah, and we're about to get a new retirement village. I'm not exactly sure what the latest iterations are with out on the Joan Gaskell Drive.
Mm-hmm.
When I was involved with ratepayers many years ago, we had huge community disgruntlement, shall I say, with what was proposed. We had.
Can you take us down that rabbit hole? Because that sounds juicy. What was proposed?
Well, they originally wanted to put up I can't quite remember the details, about 8 or 9 story buildings down there, and the worst thing was that the footprint was huge. Each one was as big as almost like Thames Hospital, and so ratepayers, residents and ratepayer group said, this is crazy, because we'd already in the early 2000s gone through some really big community consultations on how we wanted to see the town go, and the general consensus was that this should remain a lovely little kind of fishing village, welcoming place where people could come, families in particular could come and enjoy holidays and, so forth. And so we raised enough fuss that a commissioner was brought in to hear these public concerns. We had I can't remember how many thousand people signed our petitions, but it was from people throughout the community. We had a 3-day hearing, and then at the end of it, the commissioners basically said, well, I appreciate your points of view, but this whole development is within what's called a structure plan, and which is allowed by council, because it's a structure plan, the town planning that the community has decided they wanted doesn't apply. So Waterways kind of does what they want to do. It's as simple as that. They dropped 1 floor off the building, and I don't know what the latest iterations are, I'm sorry.
I wonder if there's a rooftop sort of party bar and they put up gazebos anyway.
Oh, I don't think so. But what concerns me, if you're looking at it just from the community point of view, is, and as I kind of said at the latest annual plan submissions, who's going to wipe their bottoms? If you don't have housing and decent wages and conditions for people to come and live here and do all that good work, what the hell's going to happen? It's going to be a Queenstown or worse. They're importing a whole segment of people. I don't personally see any real sense in bringing an imbalance, which we already have anyway demographically on the Coromandel, of more older people to a place that's an hour and a half by car or ambulance to Thames. Sure, we can get helicopters in, but they're meant to be emergencies, not everyday things, like...
Not flying car taxis.
No, which... I mean, did you know that there's somebody who comes in their helicopter from Little Bay to pick up their lunch or morning tea from the cafe at the airport?
He sounds like a cool person.
Wow.
Like, that's Arnold Schwarzenegger level cool.
Yeah.
Do they wear, like, camouflage and face paint as well?
They should.
That would be, at least then you go, that's post-war issues. They're going through something. Let them be.
I just hate helicopters, but I have to...
If it's top hat and tails, I think there's an issue.
Well, that's right. I mean, I did used to like James Bond.
What you don't like the latest fellow? No spoilers. I haven't seen it yet. But
So
you
No, I
you
haven't
don't like Daniel Craig?
Oh, yeah, he was all
Did you like Pierce Brosnan?
No.
He's quite
No.
polar. See,
No, I didn't like Pierce,
he
but
was me. He
I
was
like
my
Daniel
generation.
Craig.
I'm so glad I have you and Brett with this knowledge about like pop culture, because I couldn't say a name of an actor like of these guys. So I'm
Those
glad
are the only
Fabian
actors
is
I
here.
know. I'm
No,
generally
I'm
hoping.
glad he's
Pierce
here.
Brosnan. No, it's Sean Connery came on.
Yeah. But what's the one we've got to go to now with
Maverick? No.
Yeah, Maverick. Yeah. I've got to see it on the big screen.
There you go. I only know because it's in the cinemas here.
I haven't seen. No.
No, it's just started. I mean, I have to say, when we first came to live here 30 odd years ago, that John and I used to say, "Oh, this place is just perfect. All we need is a hot pool and a movie theatre."
Ta-da!
Ta-da!
Oh, that was nice. Beautiful.
Yes. Anna,
Anyway, I don't know. We've wandered all over the place.
that's great. What I want to ask you is your involvement with nuclear activism, because that was one of the first ones, right? That you got on some big adventures. So I think that links with the Peace Squadron. Did I say that?
Squadron? Peace Squadron?
Squadron.
Yeah. We mispronounce things in Kiwi language all the time.
Yeah, we do.
So are you pro-nuclear or?
Oh, yeah, right.
Fabian is funny. He's a funny guy.
I know some people are saying we have to have nuclear so we can keep having lots of energy to fire up our big TVs and everything. But no, I'm not in favour of nuclear. The whole issue is, of course,
Thank you.
it works really well, but the waste is the issue. Mm-hmm. And I dread to think what's happening in the Ukraine, because America has for years been putting on its, heads of its missiles, depleted uranium, because they don't know what the hell to do with it. So God knows what extra.
Just bury it.
Yeah, find a salt mine, or, unfortunately Greenland's melting now, so you can't stick it there.
So you got into it at an early stage in life. You were already tapping into the issue.
Well, most people do these things for principle. I did it because I kind of had the hots for this really nice Canadian guy with a yacht.
Great.
That's the truth of it.
Was he James Bond style on the yacht, or?
Yeah, well, he was a bit.
Was that the one who had one of the first interactions with the Greenpeace, the international Greenpeace? Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. Greenpeace had gotten going up in Vancouver in the early 70s. The Americans were still conducting nuclear tests in Antarctica, which is up in Alaska, which is the 50th state of America. And people actually along the whole entire west coast of North America were really freaked out about the fact that this may have an effect, and people started fearing there'd be big tidal waves as a result of those explosions. They were underground. And so a bunch of incredibly neat people, I did get to meet a lot of them, and over time started what was called the Don't Make a Wave Committee up in British Columbia. And so there's this bunch of people like us all sitting here said, "Oh, geez, this is no good, we better do something about it." And those were the great days. Woodstock had just happened, Jimi Hendrix was still, going, and so forth. And we all were believing we could change the world. So a group of people, I wasn't associated with the first trips to Antarctica, but they went and they made such a huge impact with the protest that those nuclear tests were cancelled by America. They said, "Oh, this is getting, we're losing favour." So those people were probably drinking and having some smokes and throwing the Ouija board and all these things. And anyway, decided that they liked to be, what they were doing was going for Greenpeace, So that's where Greenpeace arrived. And I'd met this guy here when I was at Waikato University, and I had a holiday job up in Russell at the Duke of Marlborough. I don't know if you've ever been there.
It's quite nice.
Yeah, just on the waterfront, not the new one.
They've got the best police station on the planet in the world, don't they?
Oh, you've tried it out? Sounds like
I meant location, because it's right on the water, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, the Duke of Marlborough. I don't know about
That was
the police
great.
station.
That was good. It was a great comment.
It was.
Very good. Very appropriate for Fabian.
I think she should take my seat. New co-host.
Yeah, man. Yes, we'll bring you as a co-host from now on, Anna. That was spot on.
Where's the brum? Taylor, come on. Sort your shit out.
Are we still on air?
Oh, yes, we are. Especially after that one.
Probably everyone's asleep by now. Yeah, so anyway, I was up on a holiday job, and long story short, I was in the post office. In those days, hey, no cell phones. So you had to go to the post office to phone your boyfriend or your girlfriend. I was in the post office trying to phone my boyfriend. And
Hold up, sorry. Were you in a private booth? You were in a room full of 50 people like, hey, honey.
no, there was just one telephone, one kind of cold, drafty post office foyer.
I feel like I was being offensive then. For those that are listening, I put my hand up to an earpiece and imagined a separate mouthpiece, but I'm assuming that would have been a single.
No, it wasn't a party line.
He's trying to give it back, but it won't be as good. Don't worry.
No, there was still a thing, but you had to dial it,
Question, did you ever get, just as an aside, we'll come back to the boyfriend call, did you ever dial a wrong number like that and speak to somebody awkwardly?
Oh, no.
Or was it because it was so difficult you had to do it right?
Well, yeah. I mean, when I was younger, I used to spend hours waiting for certain people to phone, which didn't happen. But any teenage girl, if any is listening, will know that.
So boys, pick up the phone and call them. Use your voice.
Yeah.
Just say, hey, want to hang out? You don't need to say I like you. You don't need to say I love you.
It's nice to call people. It's not that common anymore.
Well, personally, as you may be able to tell, I like to talk.
It did cross our minds.
Yeah. You better call time soon, I think. My son, who I texted to say I'm doing this, I know he'll be going, oh, Mum.
But you...
Anyway, so I met this guy. And we both couldn't get through to our respective calls. So this charming guy who was twice my age, with an accent, said, oh, well, would you like to come out to the boat for a drink? Well, and we'll come back in an hour and try again. And I'd made this pledge to myself. I will not go out onto boats with strange men. This is like... So, of course, I said yes.
Of course, yeah.
Was totally charmed, enjoyed the rum, and a couple of days later quit my job and went sailing with David. And his name was David McTaggart. And in time, he ended up being the chairman of Greenpeace International. And we were friends the whole way through till he died in the early 2000s. So anyway, so he, after a while, he said, well, let's sail to the Mediterranean. And I thought this seemed like a pretty bloody good idea. But I still had 1 year to finish at Waikato. So he said, oh, all right then, well, I'll hang around and then we'll go. And, okay. However, in the interim, my father, who was an avid newspaper reader at the time, like almost a thing of the past, but had read a little article about a group from Vancouver seeking out a vessel to carry on this Greenpeace anti-nuclear work. And they'd discovered that the French were conducting atmospheric nuclear tests at a place called Mururoa. And we said, where's Mururoa? Because Dad said, oh, David, you're from Vancouver. You must know these people. And David said, hell no, I haven't lived in Vancouver for a long time. He was involved in construction.
Your
and
Canadian
development.
accent is perfect, by the way. Oh, hey there, gee, I don't know them. Mururoa. Sounds great. Let's go see them. Yeah,
let's see it. But we didn't even know where it was.
Yeah.
I mean, now maybe, people will have forgotten now, but so we got out the atlas and look, and finally found it. So Mururoa is, briefly, geography here, 700 nautical miles southeast of Tahiti. It's 3,000 nautical miles from New Zealand, due east, in effect halfway to South America. And so I was busy with my varsity and stuff. David was saying, oh, well, I've got nothing to do. Oh, what do you think? No one could do this. Only I could do this. So that was that. And I was very encouraging because at that time we were all very preoccupied with trying to protest the Vietnam War, which was a shocking state of affairs. And, of course, New Zealand was committed and that. And then, so this was a whole new idea.
So your father had read this in a paper that this is happening in Mururoa.
Yep.
And so you were studying at the time and said, look, David, go. Do it, skipper.
You got it in one. Yeah, you should be telling this story.
Oh, you sure? I go by myself, eh? Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, we started, and within just a month really, we got ready. We got legal opinions, a lot of help from Auckland University, their legal department, just a huge amount of help from the student body there. And you've got to remember, it's all done with pen and paper and telephones, and, we were making lists of people who were offering, like, I'll give you a bunch of bananas, and someone else said, I'll Vaseline eggs for you, and someone else was saying, I want to come.
Sorry, and what? Vaseline eggs for you? Is this a preservative?
Yeah, well, people didn't usually have freezers in those days on boats, and we had one, but it didn't work anyway. So they used to put Vaseline on eggs to preserve them.
Raw egg?
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And it does preserve it. It works. Vaseline in it.
I suppose.
You hope so.
Oh, fantastic.
I've never heard of it. That's very cool.
It stops the air getting it, I suppose.
Yeah.
Anyway, long story, very short. We ended up with a crew of people, and David and two other men ended up at Mururoa, sitting there for about a month, holding up this testing program. At about the same time, the New Zealand Radiation Laboratory was starting to actually measure strontium-90 in the milk here, and New Zealanders at that stage, we used to get milk bottles at the gate every morning, all went, oh my God, this is serious. We can't have our children drinking radioactive milk. And then...
growing gills and extra eyes.
Exactly.
Was that a genuine fear? People had fears of growing body parts or losing them? Like, what was the imagery that they had been sold? What was the propaganda? What was the thing that was compelling to not want it?
Well, people at that stage still had memories of Hiroshima and Nagasaki and all those terrible deaths. There had been New Zealand servicemen who had been deliberately exposed to British nuclear tests at Christmas Island. People were already, experiencing medical problems. So it just felt like a total invasion to have this thing coming through the air, this invisible thing that could poison us.
Without consultation or...
Absolutely.
Oh.
Yeah. But what we did discover over time, especially from that trip, from some of the photographs, was that actually it wasn't just the French. The British were there observing,
The bastards.
as were the Americans.
The colonisers.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, it was all happening. So in the end, the French rammed into the boat and got their bowsprit all tangled up in the rigging, and as they backed off, it twisted the boat. The boat, by the way, was only I always say 38 feet. How many metres is that? It's not very big. Wooden boat, and it
15? 12?
yeah.
I'm terrible with mathematics.
12 threes. No, it's got to be longer.
Yeah.
14. No.
Only 2.5 in there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Taylor, do the maths. 23 feet in metres.
actually, I've got a bit of paper here. It might tell me on the bit of paper.
Give it to us in like
23,
measurements. Like
you
how,
said
how many
30
guitars
33,
lined up
right?
is that?
33? Did you say?
No, 38 feet.
38 feet.
38 feet. in meters.
12.79 metres. There you go.
Oh,
there you
12
go.
or 15. I was close. I was bang on.
Got it. Good on you.
Yeah. So anyway, so they eventually limped back to Rarotonga.
So they were hit, pulled
Yeah.
away, damaged, and they still managed to use it.
Well,
They're
no,
impressive.
they were sinking because they were taking a lot of water in, and so the French actually towed the boat into Moroa and then set up a big PR thing where they invited them to come and have lunch, and then the French put out all these photos
Beautiful
of
propos.
the protesters having lunch under the palm trees with the
wow.
Admiral.
Wow.
In fact, the Admiral was really in deep shit because it was costing over at those days $1 million a day to delay the tests. So so David and Greenpeace 3, as it was called, wasn't the flavour of the month. So eventually David went back to Vancouver and tried to get the Canadian government to take up his case against the French for the damages. By the next year, 1973, the mood had really changed, especially in New Zealand, and we had this wonderful new government, Labour government, and the Prime Minister was a marvellous man called Norman Kirk, and he said, right, we're going to send a frigate and we're going to observe what's going on there. And by this stage, a lot of boats had decided they would go, including a boat that's also famous in New Zealand history called the Free. And I came down from Vancouver and joined the boat because I said, listen, David, if you go just with Nigel, you'll be killed. They'll be so pissed off, they'll just run you down. So along with Mary Lawney, another Kiwi girl, I was just 20 at the time, we went on board and did the journey to
So you
Moroa.
were 6 months out of study then?
Yeah.
So what did you finish, or what were you studying? What was your interest at that stage?
I did a BA in English and philosophy at Waikato. Waikato was still quite fledgling. I quit seventh form, so I graduated when I was 19, and that was the end of kind of a conventional career.
Right, yeah.
So
I mean, I would have liked to have gone into the diplomatic corps or something, but kind of ended up on the other side.
So 6 months before, so you had 6 months to go. This event happened with David back to Vancouver. He's managed
Yeah.
to get himself back here to pick you up and Mary
Yeah,
and a couple of
fix
others,
the boat.
and
Yep.
then to go back out to Muriro again.
Yep. Yeah,
And
so
so what
I was
happened
there
then?
on the second voyage. Well, we we arrived there, in fact, when all the other boats had gone, including the New Zealand ship, and we were very much there on our own. And when we arrived, we were immediately buzzed by planes, and we had they send these warships out to meet you and stuff. And the whole strategy was to, at that stage, I should go back a little bit, the grounds on which we were protesting was that the French were cordoning off in a keyhole shape around Moroa Atoll an area of 100,000 square miles of international waters. Now, if you're a person of the sea, the integrity of freedom of passage is totally critical. And at that time, we didn't have economic zones which extended out long distances. So the territorial zone was 12 miles around Moroa, as it was around New Zealand at that time as well. So that was the principle on which we protested, that they were illegally using international waters and abusing the freedom of the seas to conduct their, at that time, nuclear tests.
Sounds like common practice for a lot of those countries, right?
Yeah.
They just make the rules and they just change them. They just do whatever they want.
They just declare it. They declare. So anyway, our plan was, as had been the case the year before, was to sit within that sort of keyhole shape, the keyhole being where the fallout would go from the prevailing winds. So if you imagine, we wanted to sit at that keyhole place, but just outside the territorial waters. Again, just to remind young people, there was no GPS or anything at that stage. That was only a military usable thing. So we were relying on Nigel Ingram. He was doing sun sights with sextants like throughout the day. So we got a warning notice and we said, oh yeah, right. And then the next day was stormy. The third day we were in the zone.
Just wondering if that warning was, there's a storm coming, guys. You're like, whatever, not going to believe you commies.
Yeah, Nigel was up doing his sun sights and we said, where are we? Where's Moroa? And because you can't see anything when you're in a small sailboat, your horizon is only sort of 10, 12 miles anyway. And he said, oh, that direction. And we look there, and there, swinging in the sun, is this big barrage balloon. And we knew that suspended from that was the nuclear device. So, that's as close as I've been. And it was pretty, sobering, because all we had to look after ourselves were a few wooden plugs to put in the dorade. And
sorry, the dorade?
The dorades are like the breathing tubes. You have these little funnels which bring fresh air into the yacht. And we had
Your defence was suffocation.
Yes.
Perfect. This is great.
But I mean, when you think of what those things look like, I didn't bring any pictures with me, but you've seen them. So it was like, oh, holy shit, this is real. And I have to say, as a young woman, I'd never been in a pub fight. I lived in a relatively peaceful home, apart from fights with my brother and things, and oh my God, and there's no friends around,
Don't bring a knife to a nuclear warhead fight.
No.
Jeez.
No. So later in that third afternoon, our yacht was surrounded by about 3 French naval vessels, and one of them released a Zodiac with 7 or 8 people in it. They were commandos. They had that sort of dagger insignia and knives on their legs and
Were
stuff.
they good looking? Be honest. You can be objective here.
No, the one I slapped was definitely ugly.
Yes.
Big scar down his face and
Good on
steely
you.
eyes.
Wow.
Yeah.
He could have got that in some tragic accident and you're just making fun of it. He could have had a hard life.
He could have, except that amateur photographer that I was, I managed to get photographs. And I don't know how things work, but I thought you might like to see
Oh,
them.
yeah.
not many people see the actual reproductions. Yeah, so...
Oh, he's good looking.
The
He's
French
very
man.
good looking. He's
well, I'll
French.
tell you what, you can go on the next one, all right?
Wow. Full on. And you captured this. How
It was very
wow.
It's a little out of focus. You're right. You were amateur at the time. That's fair.
That's
That's fine.
brave though.
You were learning. You were young.
That you were
That's
clicking
right.
this while it was happening.
Oh, wow.
Jesus. Look at
Yeah.
this.
And those are of Nigel Ingram being beaten. You can just see the trunge in the head. Oops.
Oh yeah, that's
Oh,
right.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Do you reckon we could probably scan these and maybe put a couple of these images in the link to with this image? Because these are
I think
it's just beautiful.
I saw that somewhere on the internet. One of these pictures. I'm pretty sure.
Are they in a,
Maybe
are
an
they,
interview
are they in a
that
lock?
you gave to RNZ or something. Is that right?
Many people have,
Right.
have
Yeah,
seen
yeah.
these.
Now we can. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh. So are they just wrestling your colleagues to the ground?
So first of all, they grabbed David
Mm-hmm.
and pulled him over the side, beating him. And then Nigel Ingram had been down below sending an SOS, which in fact was being jammed. When he came up, they grabbed him and beat him unconscious in the cockpit. And then they turned their attention to me and Mary. Mary was filming with a video camera, and they grabbed that and chucked it over
Wow.
the side. And I went down the forward hatch and hid our camera before they hauled me up. And at that stage I could see David, and he was just blood everywhere in the dinghy, and they took him away, and I didn't see him for a lot longer after that. So it was pretty scary. Yeah.
It's a big choice to get into activism and to put your life at risk. And a lot of people make fun of activists, and they actually don't realize that you're doing something for them and you're putting your life at risk. Did you have that idea? Did you know about that from the beginning, or this was an eye opener and you were like, okay, this is...
That's a good question, Leo, because even though I'd been with David the whole time after the other thing, it's like all of life. Until you live it and experience it, you don't own it. And of course I was owning it then. Even though you think you can imagine it, it's not till you're actually doing it that it's real. So it was really real, and I tell you what, I felt very lonely and very vulnerable and very long way from home.
So how did that? Because so they'd roughed people up, they'd thrown cameras overboard, they took David away, and then they just leave you there, and you've an unconscious skipper.
No, they then had control of the yacht and motored us into Muraro itself, where we could still see the nuclear bomb suspended from that big balloon I'm telling you about. And
So you got even closer.
we got even closer.
Oh, jeez.
And so we just locked ourselves in to the boat, like there were guys with machine guns standing in the cockpit and, all swarming around trying to get on board. And, we were pretty shell-shocked. So fortunately, David Ingram, who was our navigator, could speak French. He was a Royal Navy man. He was British. And even though he was pretty sore after being beaten up, he was able to interpret for us. So over the next sort of while, we negotiated about leaving the boat because they wanted to get us away. They wanted to explode that bomb. And it was a lot to do with the mana of the people who were in control. They couldn't let us get away with it. So in the course of the evening, they came and said, get David's passport, and we're taking him to hospital because he was really seriously injured. He'd been hit in the eye with a truncheon and beaten on his back. I mean, he always had eye issues for the rest of his life and neck issues. So just even doing that felt a drama in itself. You know, there was this long 200-metre wharf to walk down. On one side, they had a couple of big liners. They'd put all the personnel on those, and then when they were going to blow the bomb up, they'd take everyone off the atoll and out to sea to get them away. So all these people were sort of jeering and was, carrying on, and it was actually really hard to walk. We'd been on the boat for 4 weeks, in fact, and even trying to walk was hard. And then David was just sitting like totally out to lunch in the back of an ambulance, and was taken away. And they flew him to Papeete, where he refused treatment until he could have contact with people in Vancouver. Meantime, the next day, we were, Mary, Nigel and I were taken to an atoll called Hao, which is halfway between. It's like the clearing station for Mororoa. I mean, it's totally military controlled, but by this stage, fortunately, we were under civilian control. I'm not exactly sure why that happened, but we were. For me, the big fear was that they had gone right through the boat, but they hadn't found where I'd hidden the camera.
I'm dying to ask. Where was the spot that the French failed to find?
We had this little hidey hole, a bit hard to describe, but it was like through a shoe locker and up and over into most boats have a few spots.
So you sort of had to dig under some shapes to get it out.
Yeah, and in fact, when we'd rehearsed where we'd put it, it would have taken 5 minutes to dismantle a shelf and put it in, but I didn't have that time, and it was just sort of one. You know how when your adrenaline kicks in and bloody hell, you just find the moment and the place, and that's what happened. So we smuggled the film with us, and we were held for another week on Hao, and it was just like so scary because we had a decoy camera out in the saloon, and the whole time I was thinking, oh God, they're going to discover that wasn't the actual one, what's going to happen. But
luckily they were even more amateur in photography than you were at the time.
The French, the Lumieres were not there.
Yeah, so we at that stage had the roll of film. I think we hid it in one of the toilet systems, and in time, Mary and I were repatriated to New Zealand. We agreed to it because we started realising that the actual story wouldn't get out unless we got out to tell what had happened. And Nigel took the film, and he was to be repatriated to England, but he evaded his guard in Los Angeles and was able to call Greenpeace in Vancouver and said, get me a ticket quick. And took the film there, and then when they developed it,
wow,
like they rang me at home and they said, holy shit, we want to release this. At that stage I thought David would say no because we had nothing, but it was released by Bob Hunter and others, and then it hit front pages globally, apart from France. Yeah.
So I suppose for those younger audiences, when you take the photo on a camera, you can't then check it. So
no,
you had no idea.
This was film. This was film. Like as you can see from the photos, I could only take a dozen photos, and I had to just so focus. I had to somehow step right back from what was happening. I just had to go into that kind of space and just focus on pushing the shutter and moving the winder and breathing and taking another photo. Because of course, like what I was taking the photos of was shocking, like holy,
But if you never saw it.
No.
Anna, what?
Anyway, that's that story.
A fantastic
It's
story.
an amazing story.
It's an amazing story. What activist groups or activism are happening right now? What's happening right now that you admire, that you follow, that you said that you're not that involved anymore, but like what do you know that is happening that you really support and you would tell people to have a look? And
Okay, you're talking about locally, here and now, of the present?
I think we can talk a little bit about both local but also globally, because
Sure.
we have listeners from America, from
Really?
Germany. Yeah.
Oh, kia ora to you all.
Yeah.
Kia ora te whānau. Well, I mean, for me personally, the big thing at the moment, there's two things, although I'm most active in one of them. You've probably heard of the doomsday clock, and that's now just seconds away from midnight. And there are two things now that are equally putting us in that position.
Oh, is that the clock that counts?
The symbolic doomsday clock.
Symbolic.
The Cold War was here, but now it's even closer.
We're less than a minute to midnight. In other words, we're precarious. So the nuclear proliferation is one of the elements, which tends to not get the headlines, but is really important and significant. And as you know, people have been talking about with Putin and Ukraine and so forth in particular, but that's another issue. So the nuclear issue is really big and alive still, but not popularised in the same way.
Is that just because it's too big and too scary or too unlikely? Because who would want to do it? Or why would someone do it? Because it would just destroy everyone. There's no point in that. Is that the attitude? Is it just too unimaginable?
Well, it's unimaginable, but it's not been challenged. Like America and the Soviet Union had a certain kind of balancing system, but that's been put into disarray, especially with Donald Trump's regime, which, he withdrew from all the efforts that were balancing and perhaps holding things at a level. I mean, there's so many instabilities in the world, and one of the major instabilities is, in fact, climate change, which is my personal thing that I really take an interest in now. And so I guess I've always tried to deal with my concerns by, we used to talk about thinking globally and acting locally. So I always try to now assuage my fears with action. There's no point in just worrying. You've just got to get out and do something about it. So in terms of climate, I've been a very strong Green Party supporter for many years, and so the big climate frameworks that have finally being achieved have been as a result of the Green Party really pushing through and persisting. So I'm part of that. We're not there yet because we've still got to bring it down to totally local, i.e. each of us, to take action in our own ways. Get on your bikes, don't get on the car.
Are there other parties that, say, have been part of the pushback process or the balancing, the trying to find some neutral ground? Has that been helpful to make the actual act stronger in a sense? Like, does it take opposing parties in a government to make something stronger? Or is there a balance of that, or is it just you wish it could be better?
It can. And when we were involved with the Peace Squadron, which is kind of another part of my life, we used to, there was a big movement in Auckland, which was also reflected in Wellington and Christchurch. We had peace squadrons, and when there was a time when New Zealand was very involved in defence arrangements with America and Australia in particular, and we used to have a lot of nuclear warships and nuclear armed warships and submarines coming to New Zealand, and we'd sail out on the harbour and blockade those vessels. And we also did it was an issue that really took New Zealand by storm. It became real, so there was a huge amount of effort on education. There was a wonderful guy called Larry Ross from Christchurch who came up with this brilliant idea of declaring everything from your street to your kindergarten to your school to your neighbourhood into nuclear-free zones. And so we used to produce all these nuclear-free zone stickers and records. And over a period of time, the whole of New Zealand, by people's actions, became nuclear-free. And then that, combined with our general, huge efforts to educate, and plus our protests, the Longi government in the end said, we just have to do this. We will become nuclear-free. So it was a people-up movement. And I think we've got to have that with climate change, unfortunately, because of the way we're so dominated by business and internationalism.
Are you bleeding into the social media thing about how we access knowledge?
No, I think that can be used for good, as you are doing here. But, we actually, people are out of touch with all these things because they don't know. There's all this misinformation. They don't want to hear about the real world. It's so much more comfortable to not have to think about it, you know. Pop off to the gym, leave your kid down at daycare, don't take responsibility for your children, just go and look after yourself and have me sessions at the coffee shop. Well, sorry, that's bullshit.
Oh.
Come on. I know things have changed, however, you don't need to go to the gym, go out and do a trap line, come down with me on beach care and plant plants and try and save us from the effects of global warming.
My son's daycare did a...
Sorry if I've offended you.
No, not at all. My son's daycare, Rivoli Daycare, up the 309.
Oh, well, that's wonderful. I know those people.
We do with Kirsty out there, there's beach cleanups, and COVID's impacted a lot of that, but being able to do beach cleanups with the kids, with 1-year-olds, 2-year-olds, people in prams, and it was just last week, I think it was Friday, 4:45, I think we all met up on the beach.
Oh, cool. I have to say, I love Kirsty and what she does there. And in fact, Clayton, her guy, he was our apprentice. We had a boatyard here and he was our apprentice. So, I know them well. And I don't mean to be disrespectful.
No, not at all. But that's a grassroots movement. Yeah, that's at least in the education system. Those kids had experience. And my kids are running around. They weren't that great. I was better. I found the most. So that means I'm the most green. But for those of you that are walking on the beach, up near the footpath in the dunes and the rocks, that's where there's quite a lot as well. So if you're walking past and you walk past 5 bits of litter, that's your inaction.
That's right.
Because, we noticed, we did the beach cleanup, walking away from it, we end up finding a lot more.
Yeah.
Just along the walkways.
Yeah, I'm afraid I come home with pockets of stuff. I do a little test, like when I go walking, I might see something and I think, oh yeah, there's a this or a that, like going up the Centennial Loop. And I go up a few days later, oh, it's still there. Oh, it's still there. Eventually I'll pick up the fogging stuff.
What about the mining? What about the no mining?
Oh, yeah, thank you. I've got to do this. I hope they can see
this. For those of you
this.
listening, purple top, Coromandel, no mining.
Yeah, I really absolutely have to give a big ups to this because Eugenie Sage, God bless her, has just given a huge open letter to government. We are trying desperately to have them honour this election commitment to stop mining. And Eugenie has also sent out an open letter today, which I fully endorse. For many years, there's been a very small group of committed people called Coromandel Watchdog. Mm-hmm. And as you may well know, at the moment, the Waihi mine is about to apply for resource consent to dig this huge tunnel from Waihi under this beautiful, it's called a special area of natural significance, and the Wharekiruponga area, which is just south of Whangamata, for people who might walk up in that way. It's the home of Archie's frogs, and a very beautiful piece of Coromandel bush, of which there's not enough. And Coromandel Watchdog will next, what day are we? Wednesday.
The first, the Wednesday.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So tomorrow week, Catherine Delahunty and Gus McCasey and Pamela Greeley will be going down to Parliament to present the Coromandel Watchdog petition to honour that commitment to stop the mining from progressing under this fragile environment. And it's not too late. You can sign the petition, and we'd love to get more. Just Google Coromandel Watchdog and you'll see petition. Go there, sign it, share it. Because, again, there's a lot of lovely people who, like yourselves, who've come to live on the Coromandel, but for a long time there have been small groups of people really working hard to look after our environment. And these people have busted their guts and put themselves on the line for many, many years. So please,
I think
sign.
I think you hear this quite often, and it was one of the points from guests that we had before about the importance of mining. So if you don't mind, I'll just read. We have a couple of questions from the audience, but this one, it just relates to what we're talking about right now. So thanks, George Smith. We appreciate it that you're watching the show and sending us a question. So he says, knowing that mining is necessary to keep our lifestyle in the way it is, what would be your solution for mining? Or it's okay mining as long as it's not in your backyard?
I'm not sure if George is referring just to gold or all minerals in general, but I like to reflect on the very first zero waste conference I went to in Kaitaia in the year 2000. And there was this very interesting guy from Britain who said, forget mining in the ground. We need to start mining our rubbish dumps. We have thrown away so much stuff, and especially in terms of precious metals. At that stage, he would have said it, and lithium, for example, wasn't a big issue, or some of the rare earths. But we are locked into a throwaway culture. We mine, we exploit, we chuck. We've got to get out of that. There is a lot of effort going in now to the circular economy, which I'm sure you're familiar with. So our argument is, okay, Oceania, forget that. You start actually recovering the gold and the minerals that we're already throwing away. Like every time, oh, sorry, my iPhone's no good, chuck it in the rubbish. That isn't a helpful thing to do. Our computers, we have to think about how we build our things. So, I'd rather actually see people in Papua New Guinea or in Africa and in Waihi actually able to reclaim and recover. And if we're talking just about gold, there's no need. You just need to go to, what are they called, Gold Corp here. There's gold sitting around unused just as a wealth opportunity.
Just to steel man, instead of straw manning someone and burning down an argument, to steel man something that Alistair Brickell did mention on the show was the idea of, yes, old waste products, things that you throw away, it presents an argument that you can melt that down and you can extract it into its core components. For energy is one of the things, but also those precious metals. That sounds like a similar or at least there are some parallels there of going into waste product we already have, because we've got so much of the Industrial Revolution already. What can we take out of it? That sounds like there's an alignment there of a core idea.
Oh, absolutely.
What's already been wasted and what we're currently wasting,
Absolutely.
turn that around.
Absolutely, it's critical, whether it's your Coke bottle or whatever, like Greenpeace has got a big anti-Coke campaign.
Because just for me, I like to try and steelman people that if there's a good idea that people have,
Absolutely.
then the idea is something we praise. Whatever opinions people have of things, it's good to know there's some unity in that space. That's good.
Oh, absolutely.
I like that.
Yeah. And I mean, Alistair and I do agree on a lot of things, especially in terms of social needs and dark sky and lots of things. We've worked together on many issues for the community. But absolutely, we're past the waste society. We're well past that. It wasn't so bad when you could chuck away your sort of basket that's been made out of the local materials, but now that you chuck it away and it's a bit of plastic, it's no good. But there are technologies available in New Zealand already for recycling, even, your copper wires and things. There's been chemists working out ways to recover all these materials.
Cool.
Yeah, so definitely it's possible and it's absolutely necessary.
Anna,
Nice.
Hanako says hi. Hope have you been well, and she's asking if the T-shirts are available to buy.
Well, this one's got some smudges and quite a few holes. I don't know that there's many left, but Hanako, I'll ask Gus.
It gives character to it. A segue question there from Danny Doom. That was actually an early question, but it relates to what we're talking about. Anna, in your opinion, why New Zealand is so behind with recycling the trash?
Well, one of the things is we're a fairly small community, so there's a lot of practicalities in terms of waste recycling. There are some critical masses. We've also not been tough on businesses to take responsibility. Like, for example, you go to the pub,
100%.
and even in our local council, the recycling efforts are now only being ramped up because of citizen support. And there's a lot being done. I'm again happy to say, and yes, this is a plug, Eugenie Sage put in a lot of work on zero waste and circular economy and recycling waste when we were in government, when the Greens were in government last term. And the current minister has absolutely accepted that work, and that is slowly coming to fruition. So things are going to improve. But we need to keep supporting that. Keep voting Green and we can make it happen.
Why do you think people have this thing of well, this is just my take, this is just how, because it's similar to the mindset in Brazil. Like, it feels like for a lot of people, the green option is not political enough. It feels like the Greens are not going to look after the economy. It feels like the Greens are not look after the people. Like, I'm saying, like, because that's the feel that I get from Brazil. And it feels like it's the same here. Like, people wouldn't think that Green could actually be in power, like an MP, like a prime minister from the Green Party, which is changing, because now we have Chloe Schrobeck and we have amazing, young, powerful people. But, like, why is it hard for older people to think that the Green is actually a good option to take over?
No, habit perhaps.
Probably, yeah.
Self-interest, I don't know. Like, I know from many, many, many years working on campaigns, general election campaigns, you talk with people and they say, yeah, I agree on this and I agree on that. And then they go to put their tick on the thing and then they think, oh God, these people will make sure I have more money in my pocket. It all comes down to the friggin' money in your pocket.
Oh, yeah.
So and say, for example, within the Greens, actually people think very carefully about the money stuff. And I have to say that we're seen as a bunch of wackos, but in fact, most of us have been self-employed. We had our boatyard here. We put through 3 apprentices. You know, we're responsible citizens. We just have different priorities and goals. And within our group, there are a lot of people who are thinking very carefully. Probably the challenge is that we're thinking ahead. Most political people only think in 3-year cycles. The Green Party, for argument's sake, well, for a fact, we're very committed, for example, to the ecological vision, but it also aligns with the Māori vision, which is we think generations ahead. So when we're thinking about policies, we're not thinking about will that get us in the next election. Yeah. We actually think 6, 7, 8 generations ahead. We draw on that number of generations' wisdom from the past, and we look forward. And we have very good minds, and I can tell you, people would be very surprised at the number of people who are involved in banking and the financial sector and business who see that a lot of what we're talking about makes sense.
So you mentioned the image of a bunch of wackos and the perspectives of how people see the Green Party. Do you view it as a failure of marketing on behalf of the Green Party, or is it a success of marketing of the other parties imposing that image on you?
That's a great question.
Because either way, it's marketing, and it's someone's success and someone's failure in a way.
Yeah, I suppose. I think the fact that we're now sitting pretty steadily at 10% in the polls show that it's not just about marketing, it's about actually being real and in the real world. And
that's a nice, because I was thinking, in my question is embedded the idea of, the Green Party. Green, what's that going to do? It's not national, it's not Labour and people working, it's a colour. And they're going, is it we actually care about your future party, or just think about it for 2 minutes party?
Well, I suppose.
Idea.
I suppose it's marketing, but you're welcome to apply for a job,
Oh no, I just want to take a back seat and criticise and
that's fine.
Vote with about a week's education before
we need those guys
system.
too.
Yeah, but I love the fact, for example, in Germany now, the defence minister is actually a Green Party politician.
Fantastic. Germany, shout out.
Yeah, big shout out to Germany.
Can I go to the next one?
I'll take it away. Well, I did have another thing on green, but I'll save it.
Yeah, that's all right. We can talk about smoking green later.
Nice. Yeah, I thought about the referendum. We'll get it. Just some quick questions from the audience. So,
I'm pleased to know someone's listening.
Regarding you mentioned looking up at the night sky, have you seen any UFOs? And do you believe that alien life could exist? That's just a quick, funny.
Yeah.
One.
Many years
How
ago,
dare you say funny?
I did.
Super funny.
I did believe when I saw some UFOs when I was young, shooting across the sky in Hamilton. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Now it's all Elon Musk stuff. Hey, we think it's a UFO, but it's just the Starlink.
It's just space junk.
But even then, I still can't identify it. So,
and my friend who's using that link thing is having a terrible time with it as well.
There you go. So next, really?
With Neuralink.
And whatever it's called, I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, so next time we'll bring you back just to talk about the UFOs. Then. Do you have any thoughts? Thanks, Robo4. Robo4 says, thanks ALTBAYS for this amazing social work. Thank you for supporting the platform so we can carry on and do more of this. Anna, do you have any thoughts about the next election? Who would be the local Green Party candidates?
Okay. I think in all likelihood, Pamela Greeley, a really amazing woman from Coromandel Town, will be our candidate again. Yeah. But because we're the Green Party, everything's always open to, but I think that's likely.
Is she full name Pamela, or she go by Pam socially?
No.
Does she market herself as
No, she is
down to
Pamela.
earth? She's down to earth Pamela.
And she's into chickens. She's
Each to their own.
And also, she very much is leading a lot of the zero waste, and she works at the Coromandel dump, voluntarily, like all of us. We're all volunteers. Let me make that absolutely clear. She's really smart cookie and has got a great vision. I'm really excited. And we've got a few more people I'm talking to about local government elections. But I've got my fingers crossed for one or two, even just for community board, so that'd be good.
Can I just jump onto that
There's
point?
just one cool comment from Ashley. Thanks, Ash. Loving tonight, chat team. Beautiful lady, Anna. Thanks, Ash.
Nice. You're being objectified out there by your audience.
Woo! Kia ora, Ashley.
You mentioned a word there that I think is a buzzword for young people.
Yep.
And it's a negative buzzword because it's, and you said the word volunteer. And so I'm because as a recently
it doesn't pay,
as a recently young person, that term is terrifying because we are, as Leah will tell you, we're sold this narrative of needing to buy houses and land and support and travel and everything, and then you say the word volunteer, piss off.
I know. I've seen it. I've seen it come into Greenpeace. I've seen it come in everywhere, and it's. To me, it's a kind of sad thing, but once you monetize everything, it changes the dynamic, and I think there's nothing like kind of people power from the heart, and some of the best campaigns come from that basis. So we all have a chance to volunteer. I was thinking about that when I was getting ready to come here tonight. Like, I'd really love to encourage your listeners and everyone to think about how you can give. That there's a dynamic at play here, you see. I believe that you start the dynamic by giving and then the receiving happens. But we're now expected, we're in a mindset where, well, if you give me, it's called conditional giving, conditional love, etc. Oh, if you give me,
brilliant.
Then I'll give you. But that isn't how the energy starts. You have to start with the giving, and then I just speak from my own personal experience because that's kind of been my pattern. I also believe in trusting in the goodness, but
that's very difficult.
Yeah, it's really difficult to always trust that your needs will be met. But giving really is rewarding, and we all know that from experience. You look out for your neighbour, you help each other, get involved, be part of the school PTA, take the kids' rugby teams, do your time with, as you've been doing with your youngsters on the beach, be with your children, be with your friends, look after your older people. Don't rely on some poor Filipino to come live away from their home to look after your elderly people. Look after your own family. Have that in your mind.
Yeah, this idea that foreigners will come and do the job that pay less, it's so common.
Yeah, it's bullshit.
We need a team of Brazilians to come and help New Zealand learn how to have a conversation.
Oh, I think bring with the music. But you know what I mean? The fantastic successes in the barrio, like of the organisation and Rio, the people-oriented stuff. It's stunning. Yeah. It's stunning,
Well, for Taylor and I, like this, obviously ALTBAYS is a business. We want to make this
do you mean I have to pay you to be here?
No, absolutely not. But the thing is, we want to be able to create products and services, but like for things that we believe. And what you said just before really makes me feel happy, because everything that you see now and everything we've been doing for the last 6 months, it's coming from us, you know. So the part of giving, like we're taking it very seriously. We're like, we just have to do it. You know, we believe that people will see the efforts and be keen to support, but we're not expecting it.
No, that's right.
There's a difference is the thing with the words. Sometimes the power of the words that we discuss so many times.
That's right.
That if we keep that in mind, that we're expecting things to it's not going to work.
No.
So we're just doing it. And another cool thing that I wanted to touch there, because now we can see that people are understanding that it's a social thing that we're doing. We started this mentoring program.
Cool.
So we want to bring young people to come here to learn things, you know? So obviously time is very limited for both of us now. So if people are keen to support whoever is watching, and if people are keen to come and see and understand what we're doing, we are super keen to expand this, because nowadays, you know, like Fabian was saying, the social media thing, the technology, all the kids are there with a little bit of guidance, with a little bit of understanding of the power of that too. Like, we're going to have amazing content creators, you know, like really making a change and engaging with this awesome platform.
Oh, look, you know, total big ups to what you're doing here. I just think it's stunning. And for me, it's sort of like, oh, thank God at last, you know, because it's been like living in a desert here. It's been very lonely for a long time. And with you folk here, it's, for me, it's just fantastic. You know, it's giving me hope, which I try not to lose hope, but I'm really regaining hope, knowing that there's this interest. And I know I'm not everyone's cup of tea, but please, that's how I feel my role is now, is to help. I'm mentoring someone down in Christchurch at university at the moment as well, and it's a fine thing to be able to do. And I hope ALTBAYS is getting the feedback that you deserve.
What sort of tea do you drink, with regards to you not being everyone's cup of tea? What is your cup of tea? What were you offering at home?
Gumboot.
Oh, that's heavy stuff.
Oh, actually, I'm really delighted.
Wellington boot.
I've discovered that there's this Australian tea, and I go to Countdown because they're unionised there, you see, and they pay $1 an hour more than they do at the other place. But other people don't go there because they're Australian. So we all have our point, you know, moments.
Good.
But this tea, I think it's called Narada, and it's actually grown up in Queensland somewhere, and it's like tea used to be. When I was a kid. And
back in my day, you mean to say.
And I love it because it's in a cardboard box, and you kind of fiddle around, and you may get it right or not, but you can pull out the spout thing and tip it into your tea caddy. Like, everything's recyclable. It's all organic. It's brilliant. And
you're composting?
Of course.
Oh, good.
Oh, of course.
What's your method? Do you have a couple of different ways of doing it, or you got a set way?
No, I'm one of those ones that the compost is kind of what they call rotting stuff out the back.
Just put it out there.
I just keep...
Put some clippings, put some coffee, put whatever comes, all the fruit. Yeah, that's my style as well. It works.
It's great. It's great.
That's cool.
Yeah, and the good news is my broad beans have finally come up.
Ooh.
But, you know, to hark back to that boring old climate, it's really freaking me. It's so warm. Like, here we are in T-shirts, 1st of June. The birds don't know whether they're meant to be mating or not. You know, the bugs aren't dying.
You hope
because
they're on the side of yes.
You know.
You hope.
Yeah, yeah.
You sort of imagine that in a language sense. Should we? I don't know. And the end of all our native species and that, like, how about tonight? No, honey.
No. Well, you see, this is where the philosophy of language comes in. Yeah.
Fabian, before we wrap it up, do you want to add something or ask one more question?
We didn't even talk about the local government. Shall I come back again and talk about that? Shall we talk about that?
I was just about to say that. We are 2 hours and a half in, which is amazing.
How long?
2 hours and a half, which is fantastic, which is so good. But I was just about to say that what we can do, we can bring you back, or even bring a second person with you, just to make it a bit more, more dynamic.
Punchy. I know, I get it.
No.
We need
it's
to
not
do
criticizing. I'm just saying. But if we're gonna do something to talk about local bodies and local governments, we can do a second show.
Shall we do one? I mean, I'd love to, because I guess my message is: do you want to be ruled by old farts, or do you want your generation to be in control of your generation? And that's the crux of it. And so I can help you talk about how the system's set up and how it works, if you'd like to.
We want it, and but just so, especially again, like we keep targeting the young people. The elections that are coming for us in September, October, they are for mayor, for the community board. Yeah, is that correct? So it really affects the communities, the people who are paying attention to what's happening in your neighborhoods, right?
Absolutely. And the irony is, in many ways, the local government probably has more influence on your immediate life than national government, in a sense, because they set the rates which either affect your rent or your own mortgage or whatever, and the environment you live in. And there's huge possibilities there, and you can get paid. So
maybe we should run, Fabian.
I'm not much of a runner.
No, you can just crawl.
Come on.
You can crawl.
You can be my assistant.
Just throw lots of money at it, Fabian. You'll be there.
I'll be your translator.
Well, I'm going to need one, so might as well be you. I trust you. Damn.
Yeah.
Gosh.
I've got nothing more to add. I've loved the show. This has been a lot of fun to talk to you. I'm sorry about my jabs. I still never got your favourite jam. Mine is raspberry. You never asked. But that's fine. That's fine.
Shit.
We said it was a conversation and she ignored it.
Absolutely, this idea of reciprocity was thrown out a while ago. I never expected it to come.
Next time I'll bring something.
And I got no jams back.
Yeah. That's Fabian.
Yeah, the only kind of jam is like what I'm listening to kind of jam.
There you go. Fantastic.
Lovely.
Anna, thank you so much. I think we should do that. I think we'll bring you back. Yeah. And do something.
I didn't even touch my notes.
Well, that's a good thing. You were spot on. You were fire. But before we finish, would you like to add something or say something that is relevant for you, something that is happening right now, or something that you just feel like in your heart that our audience deserves to listen to in this beautiful Wednesday night, 1st of June?
Oh,
sounds like a special day. I don't know.
I don't know. I'd just like to offer a thank you to the three of you, Fabian, Leo, and Taylor behind the desk, and acknowledge the opportunity we have and the privilege, and wish you all the very best, and know that the future is in our hands, and kia ora.
Wow, that was beautiful. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And for our audience watching us live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7 p.m., subscribe to our YouTube channel. Send us a shout out or a question. We have Stefan Lindner coming on Friday, therapist, counselor. Man, such a sweet man, big heart.
Embassy of Friendship.
Embassy of Friendship. He supports a lot of local events and men's groups.
Top guy.
So if you have questions, you can send us on the live chats on Friday at 7 p.m. We are trying to bring... No, we're not trying. We are doing it. We're bringing a lot of different people from different backgrounds, so we accept suggestions, or if you think that someone would be great here in this show, just let us know. If you think your business, it would be cool to support or be a sponsor to our show, we finish our sponsorship proposal that will be out there very soon, but you can go to ALTBAYS.nz and send us a message if you want to see your logo on our TV, or if you want to shout out to your brand, to your products, let us know. Okay, don't forget, subscribe to this channel. Send it to your friends, talk to your family about it. It's so cool because students tell me that the family sometimes, like, they watch having dinner or something. That's cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
It depends who is here, right?
Exposed.
Yes, exposed. We're doing our best to cover different subjects and talk to different people. So if you are an open-minded person, good on you. If you're not, you're definitely at the right place. We hope to do something about that. Taylor, thank you. Anna, thank you so much. Fabian, thank you.
Thank you.
See you guys on Friday. Ciao.
Ka kite.
Oh, nice.